Welcome to Rick Scale Model Fix and part 1 of a brand new video build. This time we're going to be looking at Kinetic's brand new 1/48 scale FMA IA58 Pucara. So before we start cutting any pieces from the sprues, it's just a good idea to familiarise yourself with the early stages of the build. So in this case the build commences with the ejector seats, so there's no surprises there, but instantly it's just starting to look, and we do have an issue with some of the kit part numbering. So on this one I've already made a note to say that A43, the front ejector seat, is actually part B2. And the colour callouts for the seat are black overall, including the seat cushions and the framework. So what might be a good idea with the seat is to paint the different parts in different blacks. So I'm going to use Tamiya black, Tamiya rubber black, and maybe Tamiya matte black, just to break that up a little bit. And then we've also got some etched seat belts which need to be painted in, it's a 71, which is khaki, so we can do that while they're on the metal fret. And then we've got the rear ejector seat. Again, there's a little typo, part number error there, A1, it's actually B1. So progressing down the page, we've got Cockpit Tub Assembly, which looks quite straightforward. We've got some etch parts going in there with A16, which is the coaming, and the two instrument panels, so they'll be painted up separately. And we've got the smaller items such as the rudder pedals and the control sticks there. And then at the bottom of the page we have a focused view showing the instrument panels to be black, and the cockpit tub itself is 211, which is 36270, FS 36270. So we can spray all that prior to assembly, mask off the black instrument consoles and get that painted up. So as we saw in the instruction booklet, we build up the front ejector seat first. The detail is really good, and I'm just going to sand the bottom to remove any hint of any attachment points or anything like that. The framework is delightful, it's even got rivet detail on the inside of the seat framework. So that's going to be painted in different colours of black as we suggested. It's got separate seat cushions which are quite handy. So we're now just going to build up the rear seat. So I removed the parts with a pair of side cutters, and there's just some of the attachment points just need cleaning up finally, so we're just going to do that with a knife, just cut them off. And there's just one here on the side of the seat frame. And then using a Flory Models dual medium sander, I'm just going to give the framework and the mating surfaces just a little bit of a rub over, just to make sure that there's no rough edges that would stop or interfere the fit. And I'll just look for the framework. So again, I'm just going to nip off the remnants of the sprue attachment points. And these simply locate in a cutout on the backrest. Bit of a application of quickset Tamiya cement. And then we'll repeat for the other side, just making sure that we do get stressed enough, clean up the parts as you're going along. With today's modern toolings, the tolerances can be so tight that even a little bit of that sprue gate can interfere with the fit. And while we're only on with an ejector seat, what can happen if we're doing more serious structures is that little bit of error can multiply itself throughout the remainder of the build until you get a really serious fit issue with some of the parts later on. So we're just going to do the head box. So again, now Kinetic are employing Sprue Gates that actually also come out on the mating surfaces, as you can see on this part. So we just need to make sure that we remove those and make sure that there's no raised areas that will interfere with the parts fit. So the parts are quite slippery as well, so with this being an early kit, I'd imagine the mould release agent has got a good application, and it's making the parts quite good. My fingers are a bit greasy. So these go together. Now I found on the other seat that the fit of these parts was so good that it didn't need glue, and this is the same, except I've got them the wrong way around. And just tease them apart with a blade. And I quite like, so the part fit there is really tight, and I quite like that raised bead around it that looks like a cushion seam or something similar. And then this pushes into place on the back of the ejector seat, and we have two. Like so. And again, the part that they don't need glue, the fit of the parts is that good. I'll just put a bit on anyway, just to make sure. And then we have the seat cushions. Again, just tidying everything up, being quite meticulous, making sure that everything is as it should be. These will be quite awkward because they're on the mating surface, which does actually make cleanup easier. And there we go. And then these will slot into place to finish the seat construction, and then we'll just need to add those etched seat belts. So as you can see there, the seats are different. It's got canopy horns, breaker horns on the front seat, but not on the rear. So with the seats constructed, it was now time to start taking a look at this cockpit tub. It's moulded in one piece. It's got quite nice raised detail on it, you can see there. So all I've done just off camera was added the rudder pedals, and that can now be set aside to be painted. So before we do any painting, we just need to check what else we can do at the same time. So we're just going to have the instrument panels removed from the runners and cleaned up as well, and then we'll look at about getting some paint on these parts. So the instrument panels, in contrast to the cockpit tub, are actually quite basic. They're just circular representations of the dials, but I'm sure at some point Edard will bring an etch fret and something similar, which could enhance that if you wish. It all depends on how much can be seen through that canopy. It is quite a large canopy, so that's the rear panel, I think, which is slightly different. I think are they identical? No, this has got cutouts. So this just checking that everything does fit, and that does fit in that location quite nicely. And I'll just do the same at the front. Up. Like so. Actually, looking at the instructions there, they look quite right, so they actually go the other way around. Like that, and then there's a centre console piece which is labelled as A16, which actually is correct. And again, being careful removing the sprue attachment points, can't keep stressing it enough. And then this sits in place like so, making up the rear bulkhead of the pilot seat. So all in all, it's looking like quite a detailed cockpit, and we have a small amount of photo etch that just goes in the top down there, which will fill the void between the top of the cockpit. So I'll set about painting those, and you can join me back at the bench in due course. So I've just spent the last 10 minutes with the airbrush out, and we've masked up the cockpit consoles and sprayed those black. So we're just going to remove that masking tape. So just prefer masking and airbrushing the consoles. I just think it looks better. It's quite time consuming rather than hand painting the areas. And the last couple of bits now. So there we have the basics. It still needs weathering, detailed painting, so that was that. Well, the black was out. We sprayed up the ejector seats. As we mentioned, we used different colour blacks, the seat frame and other portions. Seat cushions were sprayed olive drab. Cockpit instrument panels were sprayed black, and the inside of them, bulkhead and coaming, sprayed black. So it just leaves some detail painting to be carried out with the instrument panels and the cockpit. So join me back at the bench. So we're just working our way around methodically. So I'm just now going to do the same to the instrument panels. Not that there's actually there isn't any switch detail on these at all, unfortunately. So we'll do that, and then it's time for some colour. So I'm not using any sort of reference, I'm just going for what looks visually pleasing. So we're just going to pick a couple of these out in red. So the ones on the throttles, we're just going to make sure that they all match. I don't want to overdo it and make it look cluttered. A couple on the instrument panel. I think that's it with those. And then we'll do the same with some yellow. And then there's a couple of to do on the instrument panel. I should just stress that this is no way meant to be a realistic portrayal of the Pucara's cockpit. It's just to add a bit of interest. So we'll let those dry and then we'll put some details in each of the dials just so that it looks a little bit different, and we can continue. So I'm just using Tamiya green, clear green, and a cocktail stick, and I'm just making a little bubble in each of the instruments. So there's no real detail provided in the kit, unfortunately, but some of the aftermarket instrument placards would go down well, but this is a strictly out of the box build. So we just want to give an impression that there's something happening, and this will, I'll just give a glossy sort of green look to the instruments versus the matte black, and it'll just make it look a little bit more interesting than perhaps dry brushing would. So while that cockpit detail dries, what we shall do is start adding a bit of detail to the ejector seats, and we're going to dry brush these, and all we're going to do is just gently flick the brush around the detail. We don't want a frosted look, but we just want to add a little bit of contrast for the black. I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but it is subtle. Then we just flick the brush back and two until it starts picking out the detail. If you go too far, it'll look as though it's got frost on it. And we just want it enough to break up the black and just highlight the detail of the seats. So I think we're there with that one. So these will need a wash applying, so they drying quite nicely. With it being Tamiya, it dries really quick. So we're going to now add a grey wash just to highlight the details, just like we did with the dry brushing. So we're going to dilute the wash a little bit. This is Flory Models Weathering Wash in grey. I'm just going to dilute that down with a bit of just water. We don't want it too thick. It looks nice and thin. I'm just going to work that in to the detail, and it'll dry. It'll give it a dusty look around the details. making sure we get it all even. And down the framework. We shall leave that to dry. And we'll do the other one. There we go. And hopefully that cockpit's dry. So just round these instruments, we can just run this wash in. Just to bring out a bit of shadow and a bit of detail and highlighting. And it's very close to the cockpit colour, so I might do this one with that dirt. So just like that. We're just going to add a little bit of dark dirt to this. So you can mix the flory washes. I'm just going to, I don't want it to overpower the pale grey. So what we're going to do is just put it into areas around the cockpit floor, and the rudder pedals, and then we'll do the quilting on the back of this as well, on the back of the bulkhead. And it's just a nice contrast rather than it be in your face and really overdone. So we'll just give the side walls of the cockpits the same treatment. To bring a bit of the detail up, and this will be left to fully dry. All the ejector pin marks there, I don't think we'll see those, I don't think we'll be too concerned with those. So that concludes part 1 of Kinetic's new 1/48 scale Pucara build. We just need all these cockpit components to dry, and hopefully in the next episode we can have a look at getting the fuselage together. So until next time, please look after yourselves, stay well and take care.